like crime scenes and stuff
Yeah,
like
I
that.
mean, it was
You
about
can't-
that bad.
And you're like 16 at the time. Right?
I was 16.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, so I did that, and then and then when I was able to get my first like legal real job, it was Starbucks. So
Oh, cool.
same thing.
A barista.
Yeah, I was a barista. Yeah.
What did you remember? Like the worst orders that you would get, like 16 pumps of caramel, or
Yeah, I remember a lot of that, and I remember my first day in particular at Starbucks. I never drank any coffee before working at Starbucks, and they were like, "Can you do the pastry tray?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I don't know how to do this." I'm like, "It's my first day. It's 4 a.m. We're getting ready for the morning shift."
yeah.
And I just remember my trainer looking at me and being like, "How do you not know how to set up a pastry tray?" I'm like, "I've never been here before. You're supposed to train me."
Yeah, I don't know how to set up a pastry tray. Well, actually, I might, because we have a pastry tray right here.
Perfect. I
Yeah.
love that.
But so I'm from the Northeast, from the Boston area, and there's Dunkins everywhere.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
everybody
yeah.
just goes to Dunkin' or whatever. But I have seen some crazy orders,
Oh yeah.
and it's just like 8 creams, like
Espresso pumps extra.
like it's just
yeah,
like
it's bad.
everybody's getting diabetes from like coffee.
I was serving up diabetes every morning. But yeah, it was a weird culture because like the culture there too was like, I mean, it probably still is. I mean, obviously, Starbucks hasn't changed that much, I don't think. But
back
like,
then it wasn't as like you could sit there and
Yeah.
do work, and it was more like a kind of like escape. Now it's there's packed with tons of people.
yeah, and I think it was like people just expected you to know like their order. Like they'd pull up and they'd just be like, "Hey," like, "Hey," and they're like, "Do you know what I want?" I'm like, "It's my first day. I did not know what you want." And then they would get just like annoyed with you, and
I got
so
another
slumyard
vanilla
to
bullshit
Starbucks.
for Joel.
Yeah, exactly. You don't know? I'm like, no, I've never met you before. So yeah, I went from the slums to Starbucks. So
Nice.
It was nice.
Oh, okay. So that's you. It's like kind of going to war. Like you've had these experiences.
I never want to work again. That's what.
All right. So did you go to college?
I
after
did.
that? Okay.
I did.
What did you want to be when you were in college?
So I went for finance because I think I just had this idea in my mind that if you study money, you'll get money, and so
if you're around it, some of it is bound to come to you.
Yeah, and actually, I mean, it was kind of crazy. I went to school in 2008, and so I was in a finance class, and we're watching like obviously the markets, like absolutely, the whole financial meltdown. So I'm like learning about this stuff while it's happening. So that was actually kind of a crazy time to be in school. And then it's like I got that degree, and it was just so hard. It's a similar time to now in terms of like the job market.
Yeah.
And so I was like coming out of college in 2011 is when I graduated, and it was man. It was
So what did you do? Like
I went and worked at a really ethical company called Wells Fargo.
Oh, nice. That's another good place to be around that time.
You can tell. I've had a lot of luck with my work. So yeah, I worked at Wells Fargo for like 5 years, and
if something bad has happened in the world, Joel was likely involved.
I was there. And then I got into so after 5 years at Wells Fargo. Actually, I worked at a different bank then for about a year, and then a friend. Shout out to my friend Jonathan Reynolds over at Titus Talent. He got me into recruiting, and he just came up to me and he was like, "Dude, I started a recruiting company. You should come work." I'm like, "I've never recruited." He's like, "I will teach you. I will teach you how to do it." And so
you're like, "I know how to do a pastry tray, though."
I was like, "If you need help with pastry trays, you got me. If you need help with cleaning tobacco off walls, I got you." And so he got me into recruitment.
And so, like, now you're like kind of like an influencer. You're on your own, and we were talking. I missed the whole TikTok bandwagon. I'm older.
Still have not missed it.
Yeah, well, I mean, but I just like never really got into it. But you're like your videos are all over the place.
Yeah.
And so, like, I think we were talking about like you first started to kind of put yourself out there, and your company was like, eh.
Yeah, I mean that same company. So Titus, shout out to Jonathan. Keep shouting out Jonathan, but I started posting, and I think at first everybody I worked with just kind of like, "What are you doing?" And it's like when someone starts showing up online that I think that's a lot of the reaction. Maybe not so much anymore, but at that point it wasn't really a thing. But I just enjoyed it, and I think I found a creative outlet.